Why, O people of the Noldor, why should we longer serve the jealous Valar, who cannot keep us, nor even their own realms secure from their enemy? And though he be now their foe, are not they and he of one kin? Vengeance calls me hence, but even were it otherwise, I would not dwell longer in the same land with this kin of my father's slayer, and of the thief of my treasure. Yet I am not the only valiant in this valiant people. And have ye not all lost your king? And what else have ye not lost? Cooped here in a narrow land between the mountains and the sea. Here once was light, that the Valar begrudged to Middle-earth. But now dark levels all. Shall we mourn here, deedless forever? A shadow folk, mist hunting, dropping vain tears in the thankless sea? Or shall we return to our home? In Cuivienen, sweet ran the waters, under unclouded stars, and wide lands lay about, where a free people might walk. There they lie still, and await us, who in our folly forsook them. Come away, let the cowards keep this city. Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
Hope you don't mind this little reading of the speech of Feanor. I will continue, as this speech is going to be the main part of this video, as there is still one last part to the speech. Fair shall the end be, though long and hard shall be the road. Say farewell to bondage, but say farewell also to ease. Say farewell to the weak. Say farewell to your treasures. More still shall we make. Journey light, but bring with you your swords. For we shall go further than Arome. Endure longer than Tolkas. We will never turn back from pursuit. After Morgoth, to the ends of the earth. War shall he have, and hatred undying. But when we have conquered, and have regained the Silmarils, then we, and we alone, shall be lords of the unsullied light, and masters of the bliss and beauty of Arda. No other race shall oust us. And after that, they swear their terrible oath. In the name of Eru Ilúvatar, calling upon Manwë and Varda as their witnesses, and swearing also upon the hallowed mountain of Taniquetil, that all who hold the Silmarils, whether the Vala, demon, elf, or man, or creature as yet unborn, great or small, evil or good, shall be their enemies. Otherwise they shall take to unbeing itself in place of existence, should they break their oaths. What an oath. Might I say, what a speech. The thing about Tolkien is he's a master of words. In terms of linguistic prose and even dialogue, no one writes, in my opinion, like Tolkien. And this is some of the best writing he ever etches out. And I find that picture that I've seen of an artist of Feanor casting his finger out, surrounded by torches and speaking to the Noldor with an angry expression. I kind of think of that, but I find that you almost see the silver forum, for lack of a better term, of Tyrion, and it's not described really, but you can see it in your mind's eye, and Feanor just raging at his people, calling them to action and saying, let the cowards keep the city. Promising that, yes, they will suffer, but they will endure more. They will go further. And that this speech, this writing, is greater than what most authors have ever been able to summon. In this case, this speech is not a case of less is more. More is more. Like I said, it's probably my favorite speech in literature. It's so furious, so maddened, and so full of just sheer human passion in a way, of grief, of rage, of anguish, of anger. I dare say Tolkien's hand must have trembled as he wrote it. So great must have been the passion inside of him. That's if he wrote it by pen, but if he wrote it by typewriter, as I think he did, his hands must have indeed been shaking as he typed the greatest speech in literature. What were your thoughts on the speech in general? We'll start with that, and then we'll start breaking down the speech a little and analyzing it.
As it was going on, this is a great speech, but I could see a downward spiral.
You could see that it's not going to end well. You don't need to hear the Curse of Mandos to know. It's kind of like the minute Anakin swears himself to Palpatine, you know nothing good's going to come of this. And that the passion of Anakin is going to lead to a great untold suffering on the part of the Jedi. and of the galaxy. Yeah, you see the downward spiral and you're going, uh-oh. But at the same time, I find it very easy when reading it, especially when I read it aloud. I must confess I have read it aloud to Jet once or twice, and I find that it's easy to get carried away by the force of the words, by the passion in them, and to just become consumed by Feanor's madness, for lack of a better term. It's in this moment I find that it's almost more here than anywhere else, that as Robert from Indie Geek once said, he is Tolkien's anti-hero written par excellence. He's just the greatest anti-hero in fantasy history. And Tolkien really sets a bar that no one's been able to match. And that Tolkien excelled at anti-heroes. He pulls out all the stops. The speech, and I know a lot of you we already recited it, but Feanor calls out to them, why should we longer serve the jealous Valar? He's claiming that the Valar are jealous or envious of the Noldor. That is arrogant in the extreme. He's basically saying the gods envy us because we're greater than them, which that sounds like Saruman. Saruman said something akin to that in Lord of the Rings.
It's very Greek.
Yes. In a way, he's calling upon the wrath of the Olympians there. You have Midas, who wished for more wealth than the Olympians. Oh, they granted it. But be careful what you wish for. That's the thing. You have characters in Greek mythology who claim the gods are envious of mortals. At their core, I would argue the Greek gods are envious of mortals in Greek mythology because they don't know true joy for the most part. So they begrudge that of mortals in a way. But here, this is not the case. The Valar are not like that. This is very Greek in a way. It's a Greek tragedy already in the writings. The next part is, who cannot keep us nor even their own realm secure from their enemy? He makes a good point. They have failed time and time again to keep their realm secure. Heck, they let Melkor into Valinor unchained.
How many times
does he have to kick the towers down before they learn, right? In the next part, though he be now their foe, are not they and he of one kin? This is a twofold thing here. For one thing, he has othered Melkor. This is a common thing in the military or when leaders are trying to rouse people to war. They'll other one side because if you dehumanize them in a way, it'll make it easier for them to war with them. He's doing it to the Valar as well. He's othering the Valar, distancing them verbally and mentally and figuratively from the Noldor, saying they're not like us. They're just like Morgoth. He's putting them all in the same category. He's defying the gods. He needs an ally somewhere, but he's basically alienating everyone from his people. Comments, vengeance calls me hence. So his motivation is not justice, but vengeance. And literature, as we all know, vengeance never leads anywhere good. And he says, but even were it otherwise, I would not dwell longer in the same land with the kin of my father's slayer and of the thief of my treasure. First part, he's associating the Valar with the murder of Finwë. He's saying they share in the guilt. To an extent, they did let a homicidal lunatic run around running free, so yeah. But they didn't actually kill Finwë. So in that regard, this is a very dark statement here. He's basically portioning out guilt as well. Now, I think at this point, he doesn't say it, but I think that he feels guilty. He thinks of himself also as the killer of his father. And that was pointed out earlier in the literature. Now, he's also associating the Valar with the theft of his treasure, because kin. What he's also not saying is that the other Noldor lost plenty of treasures in Formenos. He doesn't care about their treasures. It's his treasures he cares about. He's sounding like a politician. Yet I am not the only valiant in this valiant people. He's talking like Barney Stinson. He's lowered their self-esteem. Now he's going to start talking them up. He's never going to take them out for that lobster. He just wants to get lucky. I'm joking. Actually, he's appealing to their ego now, their vanity. And as Cicero has once said, all is vanity. And have ye not all lost your king? He finally acknowledges their grief, their loss, their sense of despair. Because they are feeling lost. They're scared because Telperion and Lorelin went out. There's naught but darkness. And so the Noldor are terrified. And while the Vanyar are crying in a corner and the Teleri are just looking to their ships, the Sindarin over in Middle-earth are looking up at the stars or to their trees. The Noldor have nowhere to look to. This is all the more traumatizing for them in a way. Feanor finally comments on their losses, but he kind of skews things. And what else have ye not lost, cooped here in a narrow land between the mountains and the sea? He's calling them to conquest, claiming all the lands across the sea belong to the Noldor. What were your thoughts on how he's directing the Noldor? He's a master of words, as it's stated here. He starts by tearing down the Valar in their minds, and then starts to build the Noldor as people, and then starts to direct them in one direction.
He's a very good orator, and that's probably his best skill.
It's what makes him so terrifying.
Exactly.
He speaks as well as Conan sometimes does. In some stories, Conan speaks very well like this, but Conan almost does a Henry V thing from the play. We lucky few, we few band of brothers. Feanor's not doing that here. He's doing something different. He kind of is, but he's kind of not. Where Conan appeals to the brotherhood in his men, Feanor is here appealing to not brotherhood, but to pain, to loss. And there's only one direction he's going to direct that pain and that loss, to rage. Here once was light, that the Valar begrudged to Middle-earth, but now dark levels all. He's claiming that the Valar denied light to Middle-earth. Kind of, but I don't think it was on purpose, or that was the Valar's intent. He's putting a lot of blame on them.
He's putting words in their mouths.
Yeah, that too. I hadn't thought of it that way, but he is. That's why it's important that we've got two of us here. Shall we mourn here, deedless forever? Now he's calling to their honor, because the Noldor are very skilled craftsmen and warriors. They love their honor, and he's saying, yeah, you've never accomplished anything. You're living in dad's attic or basement, or mom's basement or attic. I think he's comparing them to us millennials, and appealing to their desire and their hunger to do something, to act, and to perform great deeds. I'm joking, by the way, about the millennial joke. He comments on a shadow folk mist haunting, dropping vain tears in the thankless sea. And he's right. I also think that this is a bit of a rebuke to the Valar, saying, what, are you going to sit in your circle of doom and just cry about it? Gather our swords and let's go take back what's ours. Stretching it out. But that's part of his great oratorical skills. Or shall we return to our home? That's his moment of, are you with me? But he stretches this moment out. Like I said, he stretches the moment out. In Cuivienen, sweet ran the waters, under unclouded stars, and wide lands lay about. Now he's basically saying everything. There's honey everywhere. Life's better over there. The grass is greener. Why are we still here? This place is not paradise. That's paradise over there. We left paradise to become slaves, to put chains around our necks. And that's not really what happened. Although, from a philosophical point of view, the Valar did overawe the representatives of the elves before sending the ambassadors back to persuade the elves to come to Valinor. When certain Valar, like Ulmo, said, don't do that. No. In a way, you're domesticating them. You're institutionalizing the elves. Those that reach Valinor will not be able to survive without you to an extent. Learning how to is going to be incredibly traumatic, which, that's what happens. So there is an argument to be made here. And in some ways, the grass is greener on the other side because they have to suffer and toil in those fields. That's why the grass is greener. Because food, here's the thing. I'm just going to be honest. We tend to grow tomatoes here. We have a tomato garden. And I find that I prefer the taste of our tomatoes to the store-bought tomatoes. We have family who are friends with apple farmers. And apples brought from them typically taste better, I find. That's just the way it works, I find. Food tastes better if there's been toil put in rather than in a factory, so to speak. The sweat of your own labors is often better than the sweat of others, so to speak. He points out, there they lie still and await us who in our folly forsook them. Come away, let the cowards keep the city. And now he's othered everyone who's like, I don't know about this. You sound kind of skeevy, Feanor. I don't know about this. Now, hesitation at this point is reasonable because what Feanor is proposing is indeed madness. And Feanor is speaking as one who is Fey. He's gone bonkers. And there are those who can see this. I almost imagine him pointing around him at some in the crowd who are doubtful and saying, let the cowards keep the city. And so that now they're in a corner. They have been othered. If you don't join Feanor, you're a coward. You're undeserving. If you join him, you're valorous. You deserve to have all the prizes. You deserve to enjoy in the spoils. It's funny how speeches since ancient Roman times, even pharaonic Egyptian times and Hittite times, have not really changed. The cowards stay at home. The valorous, the men, marched out there and took what was theirs. That's essentially how a lot of these speeches work. Tolkien has written Feanor as giving that kind of speech. From his point of view, they would be cowards to forsake their duty, which they have a duty to his mind. He's king. And he says, fair shall the end be. You're gonna die well.
He's valorous or foolish?
Well, he says fair end, like a clean death. He's lying. No death is going to be clean out in Middle-earth, except for one or two, but they're in the minority. The long and hard shall be the road. Okay, there he's telling the truth. Now he's saying the only way you can have a clean death is on a long and hard road, by earning it. Okay, fair enough. Say farewell to bondage. I harken back to our previous points about to an extent. A gilded cage is still a cage, but on the other hand, the Valar always kind of took the attitude, hey, you're free to go, bro. Because the Teleri have been coming and going between Alqualonde and Middle-earth. We'll visit Tyrion, but we want to be able to come and go between Middle-earth and here. And what was the response? Okay, you can do that. You can have your cake and eat it too. Here's your cake. The thing is, the Noldor chose to establish themselves closer to the Valar, as did the Vanyar. So here, Feanor's kind of... he's not lying, but he's not telling the truth here. They made a conscious decision. They bear the responsibility for their choice. Although it's very elfish of Feanor to do this to us. Get it? Selfish? Elfish? Oh, come on. The Sylvanesti were fairly selfish, so it works in Dragonlance.
Yes, I know.
But he also points out, but say farewell also to ease. He warns them, you're not going to have an easy road out there. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be fun, but it's necessary. This is a call to adventure, as Joseph Campbell would put it. Essentially, what Feanor is calling them to do is action. The thing with the hero's journey is that the journey to manhood or womanhood, for the ladies out there, is never an easy thing, but you have to experience discomfort to reach adulthood. Ease and comfort are not always natural to human beings. We're going to experience hardship and death and struggle no matter what. Although, just to achieve peaceful eras and good times. And those good times are always worth it. I'm just saying. But there has to be some sorrow along the way so that you better enjoy the good that you have. Say farewell to the weak. Of course he's a douche about it. He's accusing the cowards and those who don't want to come along, who doubt him as being weak. I think he's kind of speaking to Finarfin there. It's not that Finarfin's a stranger to discomfort. He steps into the War of Wrath. He doesn't care. He's willing to endure discomfort. The thing about Finarfin, he's more loyal to Fingolfin, with good reason. Finarfin and the other Noldor elves who aren't sure about this are generally, it's not the loss of comfort that frightens them. It's Feanor who frightens them. They kind of see him as being a little bonkers.
Is this really what we should do?
And he says, say farewell to your treasures, but more still shall we make. Okay, yeah, he ends up going there. Journey light, but bring with you your swords. There's something that William Wallace once said to the English. When the English told him from their side of the Stirling Bridge, him and the Earl of Moray, I think it was, they warned, surrender and you shall have peace, which was a lie, because this was during the first wars of Scottish independence. The English had no intention of showing any mercy or peace or compassion or goodness to the Scots. Wallace summed it up as, we have not come here for the comfort of peace, for blood and war, and we'll prove it in your very beards. And that's kind of the sentiment here. We're not going for the comfort of peace over where Morgoth has fled. We're going there with swords in hand. The Japanese, on the other hand, have a saying, an unsheathed sword is a sword that must be used at all times. A sword must have a scabbard, so that way it does not turn all friends and allies into enemies and victims. That's kind of what's happening here. There are no scabbards for these swords that Feanor is calling for. For we will go further than Arome, endure longer than Tolkas. We're better than the Valar. And our dicks are better than Ole's. It's like, yeah, we're bigger too. He may as well say that. He's
lots of machismo.
Yes. Going further than Arome, because Arome goes further than any other Valar. There's a reason he's called Arome the Great by the Rohirrim. He is great. I love Arome. Endure longer than Tolkas. If it was the 80s, he maybe should have been played by Arnold or Stallone. We will never turn back from pursuit. Yet no matter how much they endure, no matter how much they suffer, they're going to keep going. Oh boy. After Morgoth, to the ends of the earth. They mean business. Anyone who says, to the ends of the earth, that never ends well. That's a call to vengeance. At that point in the speech, what was your thoughts?
There goes the neighborhood. In a way, he's asking for cultural suicide.
Yeah, I guess. War shall he have, and hatred undying.
That's a good direction to take your kingdom in.
Glad to know we know what his motive is. Vengeance, like we haven't already hammered that. But when we have conquered and have regained the Silmarils, then we, and we alone, shall be lords of the unsullied light and masters of the bliss and beauty of Arda. At this point, we're going to be masters of light. Now, the masters of light are the Valar. We're going to dethrone the Valar, essentially, and hog the light to ourselves. Now, if they don't end up at war with the Valar, they're hogging the light to themselves. That's not okay, bro. it almost seems like they're implying we'll be the boss now, this is essentially what later happens with our Pharazôn. But the difference between Feanor and Pharazôn is that Feanor does have somewhat of a good side. No other race shall oust us. Oh boy, they're gonna end up at war with everyone. And that's the problem. All sides end up at war with the Noldor. Well, specifically the Feanorians. The Feanorians end up deciding we are at war with everyone. Only the sons of Feanor swear the oath. What's interesting is that Celebrimbor is already alive at this time. Celebrimbor met his grandfather. The Smith of the Rings of Power is not one of them that swears the oath. I know he was written into the scene later, long after this part of the story, but I wonder if he's basically in the background looking at his dad as Curufin swears the oath eagerly and just thinking, this is not a good idea, daddy. The entirety of the Noldor who decide to follow are going, no, we're not swearing the oath, but we're coming along. But mostly they're following Fingolfin because Fingolfin swore his own oath, just as binding that he would follow Feanor. But at the same time, Fingolfin does not want to follow. But Fingon, his most impulsive son, who's a yes man to Maithros, the eldest son of Feanor, you have, of course, some who are arguing, let's not go. Finarfin only agrees because Fingolfin also agrees, because Finarfin and Fingolfin are tied at the waist. I've seen some fans try to pit Finarfin and Fingolfin against each other in some ways. I don't see it. The two are generally always in agreement. Or they try to say Finarfin's the brains and Fingolfin's just dumb and the brute. No, Fingolfin's just as wise as Finarfin. It's just, with Fingolfin, he has, as Red Book once said, a strong sense of duty and honor. The trouble with Fingolfin is he is cursed by his own goodness. He cannot say no because 70% of his people have already decided that they're going. His eldest son has said, I'm going. And so Fingolfin, no matter if he were to try to dissuade his brother would end up in command of 70% of the Noldor. And Fingon would be with him. That is not what Fingolfin wants. So Fingolfin, reluctantly against his will, has to go. That's rather sad. He's dragged kicking and screaming down the path of madness. Although he never goes mad, never abandons his people, and never lets down his people so long as he can help it. Man, does Feanor screw up. And man, did Maithros and his brother screw up, because Maithros leads them in swearing the oath of Feanor. The problem with the sons of Feanor is that they feel as though they have to babysit their dad. They have always felt this way, according to some of the expanded History of Middle-earth literature. Yes, I'm going to reference it, because in this case, it expands a little upon the Feanorians. The History of Middle-earth does not detract from the published edition, but instead adds to details. I'm all for including details. But if it detracts or tries to retcon out published Silmarillion stuff, generally I say don't listen to History of Middle-earth. It's just a bunch of rough drafts. And it was sidelined for a reason. That disclaimer aside, the Feanorians, they're a little infantilized. They have to stay at home with dad, but on the other hand, dad is bipolar. Like, if there's any character in literature who's truly bipolar, it's Feanor. He does have that disorder, ranging from the extremes of joy to the vast depths of anger and sorrow. He is a little unhinged. His sons, they feel guilty for their grandfather's death because they love their grandpa, but they're frightened for their father and feel that they have to swear the oath and they have to protect their dad from himself. In some ways, they have been forced to stay at home their entire lives, never allowed to venture out of the home by their dad, who's just such a barrel of energy. So he's not going to let them move out and make lives for themselves, but he's so needy and unhinged, and in some ways childish, he needs them to stay at home to babysit him. There is no way this relationship is healthy. What are your thoughts on it from a psychological point of view regarding these kids and their dad?
A very bad codependent relationship. Logically should just opt out because this isn't healthy for them. They will get caught up in this obsession and they will lose track of themselves.
You've not read on ahead, but that's precisely what happens, sadly.
It's a situation where they should have probably got together and discussed the possibility of maybe their father should be removed from his position.
Before it led to this, you mean?
Exactly. Unfortunately, their father's a really great orator.
Yeah, who could compete with him? And even they get swept up by his emotions. But they're so codependent with him that they can't think to say no here. Only Maithros later goes, yeah, that was a bad idea. But what do you think's engulfed in getting dragged in?
He should know this is a bad idea. He should stop his brother.
But Dan, the only way to stop him would be to draw a sword against him.
Which he's caught in a catch-22.
Now that I think about it, there's another character that Fingolfin probably feels he has to protect. His great-nephew, Celebrimbor. You basically have a young elf. I don't know how old Celebrimbor is. I've seen some people posit that he might have been a child at the time. Others that he's about Galadriel's age. Here's the thing. If Fingon had not said, okay, I'm all for this, even then, you have Celebrimbor going, I'm not taking up this oath. And you have Curufin, his dad. Well, you're coming along, son. You got Celebrimbor who's going to be in danger, and he's really sweet-natured and kind and trusting. Are you really going to leave him alone with his grandpa and his psychotic dad and some of his psychotic uncles? Yes, Maethras will protect him, but Maethras has a hard time standing up to his father. Yeah, there's also that factor. But what do you think of Finarfin, who's just going, bad idea? When I read it, I often think it's like Fingolfin's the eldest son. You have Finarfin, who's like the middle brother, kind of caught between the two brothers. And you got the third brother syndrome with Feanor, where he has more energy than he knows what to do with. He's utterly brilliant, but he's all over the place.
Finwë never should have played favorite, never should have enabled his son.
Yeah, but what do you think of Finarfin's place in the family dynamics?
He's trying to be the voice of reason in the room. It takes a lot of courage to stand up to someone like Feanor. However, as it stands at the moment,
there's no standing up to him.
Exactly.
Even Finarfin gets swept up by this speech.
And it's very easy to do. With such passion, it can overrule even the wisest of minds.
Yeah, I think we've talked about the speech into the pavement. We're going to be moving on next time to the next part of this story. Hopefully we're going to conclude this chapter, but there's so much that happens in this chapter. There are so many themes and ideas and so much action that there are entire novels that don't have half the stuff that's happening here. The only characters I can think of who have half the oratorial skills of Feanor are Raistlin, Conan, and probably Aragorn, and even Elrond a few times, and a bunch of other Tolkien characters, because they're written by Tolkien. Anyways, tell us what you think of this part of and what you think of this speech and of this video. And if so, we hope that, like Feanor did to the Noldor to go conquer, that we have talked you into smashing that subscribe and that like button.